All right, welcome to Hero Quest fans. This is Kurgan. I'm getting over a cold, so I may have to pause a few times as I cough here, but I am just doing a voiceover of some painting I did. It's not super exciting because, as you can see, all I've really done is I'm putting together this orc army for the Warhammer 40K doubles tournament. That's the doubles tournament, so it's a team-based Games Workshop event for Gen Con 2025, and it's going to be on August 1st. So I'm hoping I can get everything ready. I actually had some orcs already completed from Assault on Black Reach, which was 5th edition from 2008, I think, which were gifted to me, and those were already primed. They had like the green on the faces. Some of them had their teeth painted. Some of them had their guns painted, but other than that, they were just not finished. So I finished those up. I painted them to a level of quality that I liked, that I thought was good for the table. I basically gave the orcs kind of a black and white camo pattern for their pants based on, I guess, the old lore of the Blood Axes faction or clan of the orcs. And you can see the Defcoptas that I had. I had three of those. I had to put them on different bases because the bases have changed in 11th edition, which is what they're using. So I've actually stuck new bases on all of the orc boys and then the bigger orc knobs. So they had 25 millimeter circular bases, and the new ones are all 32 millimeter. So I bought like a bag of those, and I just stuck them on with sticky tack. But anyway, I had completed those figures. There was like 20 regular orcs, five knobs, and then one orc war boss, and then three def coptas really weren't done. But anyway, I completed a whole bunch of them because last year we were playing Space Crusade and I was using proxy figures. So I was using these Warhammer 40K figures from 2008 to recreate Space Crusade from 1990. Even though I have a couple of copies of Space Crusade, I didn't want to print them myself or paint them myself. I wanted to keep them pristine. Anyway, so I realized, of course, when my friend talked me into this, that I need more figures than I have. But I really enjoyed painting orcs. At least that's what I told myself. So I thought, well, I could get a few more and see if I can build an army. So I bought one of these sets. It comes with like 11 figures. So there's one boss knob and then 10 boys, orcs. And they look very, very similar. But these are from 10th edition, so 2021, because the new edition hasn't been out that long. And supposedly the 12th edition is supposed to come out, I don't know, in a year from now, like next July or something like that. So maybe less than a year. And I don't know how that whole process goes, but I just wanted to enter the tournament and I wanted to paint some figures. And so these, it was my golden opportunity to start from scratch. So I got the best deal I could on Amazon, not sponsored, and took out the sprues. I cleaned them with soap and water because they always say you should do that just in case, there's some schmutz on it from the factory. Dried it off, and then I got my primer. And for the rigid plastic like this, it apparently doesn't matter that much, but I had much better luck with the Krylon flat black primer or matte black. It actually says primer on the cap, or at least it used to, and it's like $6. And I got it at there's a chain called Hobby Lobby. I got it there. That was the cheapest, but like all these other hardware stores didn't have the that specific primer. They had Rust-Oleum primer, flat black primer. That stuff, I've just had no luck with it. Maybe I just got a bad can of the stuff, but it always comes out like oily and like tacky. Even after like 5 or 6 days, it's still tacky. My general rule is I don't buy this expensive army painter stuff. I know people say it's better, but it's like $15 for a can, like a small can. And it's like I don't paint that many miniatures, so just priming that many with that stuff just seems like a waste to me. I'd rather buy a whole bunch of these cheaper cans. But I did learn that the Paint Plus Primer Rust-Oleum does not work well on like bendy flexible plastics. So whenever I have stiff plastic, I'll use the Rust-Oleum if I want to, if I like the color. But I let it cure for several days. I don't just spray it on and then start adding details. Like I like to have a base coat with it just of the color that I want. I don't usually do the spray in white or spray in black like so many other people do. I don't have an airbrush. So I just go outside and I get some cardboard flats and I put them out and I spray that down. And when it's dry, then I add the details. So for my Space Marines, that again I used for Space Crusade, I did a set in blue, a set in red, a set in yellow. Let it, fully cure for like a week or more, just to make sure it was, completely dry, completely, no tack at all to the touch. And then I started painting on details. And I used some specialty paints, some more expensive paints. I used some chrome pens to kind of like add details. It was a lot of fun, but it was fairly easy because there really wasn't much to do, and you're dealing with big robots anyway, big robot suits. So it's not like you're gonna have to paint, tiny face details. The commanders did have human faces, but they had their eyes scrunched up and their mouths wide open like babies. So it was kind of easy. You didn't have to paint eyes. But with these orcs, again, I figure, hey, they're monsters. So if you screw up a little bit and they look ugly or weird, who cares? They're monsters. That's how they're supposed to look, right? So I thought, okay, this will be pretty easy. And I had experience painting orcs before. But anyway, you get this big dumb army of cannon fodder monsters. How fun is that? So anyway, I took the sprues out, cleaned them up, and then I kept everything on the sprues. I know I'm gonna have to like clip all the stuff off the sprues. I know there's different ways of doing it. People say, well, you should clip it off and super glue it together and then paint it. And then some people don't super glue it. They use sticky tack to stick the pieces together and then they paint it. But I find I know that I know what it's going to look like at the end. So I'm not too worried about that. I'm not an expert painter. I'm still learning. But this is what I did for the Space Marines. I did it just like this. Spray it with primer first. I used the Krylon flat black, even though it's stiff, just because I've had better luck with this. I mean, this stuff dries super fast. Like it's dry within minutes. I mean, unless you overspray too much, and then maybe an hour. But anyway, I let this dry for a day, and then I just got out my paint. I showed it earlier. So I have all these P3 Formula P3s, so Privateer Press that I got a long time ago, and I've added airbrush thinner to them to keep them lasting. But it's Gnarls Green, and I started with that because it's the darkest green. Now, as you can see in the light, it looks pretty good actually, pretty orky, if you will. But in the lighting that I've got in my desk, I mean, it looks almost black. It looks very, very dark. So I guess it's just some of the ways it absorbs the light. But anyway, yeah, I just thought, I don't have a lot of time. I've been sick. I've had family activities. I've had all this other stuff, so I couldn't do streams. But I thought, well, I can paint, and I wanted to do it live, but do it live. But the problem is, people will ask you questions, they'll type stuff, and then you want to start talking, and then your voice, and it's like I'm trying to conserve my voice as it is. So even now, I'm risking it. So I hope you appreciate it. But I've had some time to rest. But anyway, I worked on this for about an hour, and then I did another hour that I didn't record. What all I'm doing is just adding the green, just painting in the green with my favorite brush there. And for the most part, I try to keep it all inside the lines, as they used to say in school. But there's a couple screw ups, but when I paint over, it'll be fine. But my goal is in time for the convention. So by July 30th, well, by July 29th, because I'll be packing up, everything's got to be done. So, yeah, this picture is what it's going to look like. So just if you see it on your screen now, so you've got like three different layers to the skin. So you got the dark recesses, you've got the main green, and then you got the musculature. Actually, some of the orcs that I had someone had started painting, so some of them have like brighter skin, which I don't mind. I mean, the orcs don't have all have to have the exact same skin tone. But then you got the teeth, you got the sometimes the tongue or the inside of the mouth. It's usually black, but maybe there's like a red tongue. The eyes are red. You've got some skulls that are painted. I gave them the gray pants with the three colors to simulate kind of a camouflage-esque pattern that the blood axes have, even though it's not very camouflaged. And then I had some problems with my light there. Then you've got the brown for the leather straps that hold their stuff together. You've got chrome for the metal on their blades. And you've got these teeth for these tusks that they've collected from other orcs that they've killed or that they use for money. So I use one of the few Citadel paints that I have. I use Retributor armor because I think it looks really cool, like a deep bronze kind of color. Goes on really easy, and of course you got brown for the wood handles of their axes. The swords will have like a little bit of gold, so that's usually what's the other one? It's called Auric Armor Gold, and it's layer paint for Citadel color. So I use that for like maybe the hilt of the sword or the crossguard. And then whenever there's like straps, there's like a wrapping, not like the leather straps that hold the belts on, but the wrapping for the different orcs. I paint that. It's called Coal Black, and that's Privateer Press. It's kind of like a really, really, really dark green. I really like the way it looks, and it sets it off differently from just plain black. I originally tried to use metallic black, like a metallic black craft paint on all the metal, but you just don't see. I mean, it looks too flat. So I've had to add other colors. And then I'm trying to get it in focus here, but these, I know it looks like a motorcycle, but these are the Def Coptas. I'm gonna have to use bits of sprue to kind of put them up in the air so they're like on a stem, they call it a flying base, because the originals had these round, like perfectly round, transparent bases, and they had a transparent stem that was like integrated into it that they would just kind of sit on. But the new bases are those ovals that you've seen. But the new figures just have, it looks like just junk or like chains or cables like hanging down or like pieces of rock underneath them. It looks kind of weird. But I was going to simulate that with cutting pieces of the sprue, the plastic sprue, and just glue that on there. And I don't want to glue everything down permanently with super glue. Well, I didn't want to rebase the figures either. I mean, I would have had to break the slotted base off the bottom and then like glue the feet to the new bases, but instead I just used sticky tack and I just inverted the base. So hopefully they allow that in the tournament. Otherwise, if I use the base like one base stacked on top of the other, they're going to be like, I don't know, a quarter of an inch taller. I don't think that matters too much, but I don't know. Maybe some tournaments would object to that. So we'll see. They claimed though that if they had extra, they would let me swap out any figures that didn't meet the qualifications. Getting off track. So the Coptas, yeah. So they're going to have bits of sprue supporting them, and I think what I'm going to end up doing with the Coptas is I'm going to try to recreate that camo pattern on like the vehicle parts. So like the front of the Copta, I guess I don't know if you call it the fuselage, but the part that holds the missiles. And I painted little faces on the missiles just because I was experimenting with that, having fun with it. So that front part and then the back part that has like the tail wings, whatever you call it, that's going to have the camouflage. So those are both going to be gray. And I looked at pictures of different vehicles, like military vehicles that have camouflage, and the little splotches, the little paint splotches, I call them, are larger. So that would be one thing to do. And then the other thing is like there are motorcycles, for example, that have camouflage on it. So I'm kind of drawing inspiration from that. So like a lot of parts of it are just black, but then there's just big pieces that have the camouflage either because it's been painted on or because it's like a decal that's been applied. You know, like a custom car, like put the graphics on. So anyway, all you're seeing me do now is just applying the green, just the basic stuff. So you start with the dark green layer. Then you add like a lighter green, so on like the raised areas. So I don't know if that's considered. So this is considered like the base coat. Of course, the primer's already on there. So the primer, base coat, and then like a layer, and then I guess the highlight. But I usually don't even do the highlight. So, well, no, I guess I do because I go back over it with a lighter green, like the lightest green that I have, which is like a crisp green from Apple Barrel, or I guess you could call it a goblin green, but it's kind of just a really bright, almost a neon green, and I just put that very sparingly on like the muscle to like bring out the definition. And I think it's worked out pretty well. I mean, it doesn't look like heavy metal where you've got, you know, tiny tiny lines going around each contour, which is what you'd have to do to create that effect that you see like on magazine covers and stuff. That just I don't have that kind of time right now. I do have some good brushes where I could do that. It would be kind of fun to try it sometime. But for now, this is good enough for me. But yeah, the guns are going to be silver. I did make the Orc War Boss's gun gold. I used that Auric. I also have some gold chrome pens. They're not like perfectly mirror shiny like the Molotov chrome pens for the silver. I kind of wish they had a gold one, but they have some pretty close ones. And I do brush on varnish at the end, like kind of a matte or satin. Well, I was using it was a satin varnish, but it looked very glossy, very shiny. And I don't mind that for the muscle. It kind of gives it kind of a sweaty look. But for the other, well, and I guess for the guns it works okay too because it can be like polished metal. But I do have a more matte varnish that I can use as well, just to kind of give it a clear coat, protective layer at the end. But we'll see what I can get done. My main goal is get the green on the skin, get silver on the weapons, and white on the teeth, red on the eyes. And if that's all I can get done, then that's all I'm going to get done. So I'm going to have some figures that look like completely done and some that just kind of look basic and kind of flat. But hopefully I can get more done. I did actually have more projects going. I had a whole bunch of Eldar figures I was working on for the Space Crusade. I'm kind of putting those on the back burner while I work on these because the tournament, it's got to happen. Actually, I have a family member who has some partially painted orcs, once again, that he's going to let me borrow, and I'm going to see. But I'm not counting on that. I'm not assuming that they're all going to be ready to go. And I know there's some that are being held back just because it's a family painting project. Like I don't want to take that away from them and say like, oh, you don't get to paint your own stuff because I did it. So I'm just going to see what they have done already and kind of supplement as I go. But I should be able to have a decent army. I don't have a lot of specialty figures. I'm just totally learning about Warhammer from the start. I got the index cards just recently. I've been reading over the PDF. It's supposed to be an expert tournament, so it's like, oh great, what have I got myself into here? But it should be fun. A friend of mine is going to be in it on my team, and hopefully he doesn't mind if I have to ask him questions. But we'll coordinate our strategies. So anyway, I've got the basic guys. I've got the slightly bigger guys. I've got the biggest guy. I've got a several packages on the way. So I got the modern combat patrol. So I'm combining the old orcs with the new orcs basically. So you got the 2008 Assault and Black Reach orcs, um, boys, knobs, war boss, def coptas, and then I've got this. I guess it's just a box of more boys and then a boss knob, and then I've got the combat patrol from 10th edition. So that is supposed to have a Def Dread, which is this giant like mech type thing. I guess it's the equivalent of a Space Marine dreadnought. I mean, the orcs always struck me as these are the guys who are just cannon fodder. They just throw big armies at the enemy and hope that they can overwhelm them with superior numbers. Whereas the Space Marines are like really powerful and the Eldar are really fast. I just don't have enough Eldar to field in an actual army. Like I'd have to buy way more stuff. It would just be ridiculous. I have to spend a fortune on it. It's kind of expensive hobby. I mean, I can see why people want to do like 3D print and stuff like that. Plus, they keep changing it up, so people feel like they have to redo their entire armies. Whereas I'm just adding to what I already have and learning as I go, so I can kind of justify it. But I mean, I have some Necrons, but I don't have enough. I have some Gene Stealers, don't have enough. I have a variety of characters because I've all just been focusing on I can use these in Space Crusade versus I can field a regulation 1,000 point army for a tournament because I think it's 1,000 points per person. So you got basically 2,000 points. They assign points to every unit worth of troops versus another 2,000 on the other side, and you fight it out. Whoever wins or completes the objective. But yeah, the Def Dread is like a dreadnought for the orcs, and then there's a second war boss in mega armor, and he has a little goblin or Gretchen, they call them space goblins, on his shoulders, which is cool. And he has like this big axe that has like chainsaws on it, so it's way over the top. You gotta love it. So I'll be uh, putting all that together and painting it. So going back to the super glue, so you're supposed to just super glue these guys together, and what always happens is you have a bunch of pieces left over. I hate that because you've got like options. So you've got multiple heads or you've got multiple arms holding different weapons. And in the game, those all matter. Like you're supposed to be, your character is supposed to be holding the weapon that your character actually has. So if he's got an axe, then he has one stat. If he has like a gun, it's something else. If it's a flamethrower, it's something else. And you can only have certain combinations of things. You can't have more than certain ones, and you got to like figure it out. So what I'm going to do with these figures is I'm not doing the neodymium magnets, which are very expensive. I'm not doing that. Instead, I'm just with most of the figures, there's going to be more than one option for each one. And so I'm just going to use sticky tack on the arms only. The rest of the figure is going to be all glued together, glued to the base, just like it is. But the arms will be detachable, and I'll just use sticky tack. Don't have any dark green. I have some light green. I'll probably just use gray. But anyway, I'll have that gray sticky tack, and I'll have these little Ziploc bags, these mini bags that they use for like jewelry, and I'll use those to sort out like the different weapon options. But I've got to come up with an official roster. So probably what'll happen is I'll just leave some of them at home or in the package, and then I'll just have like the weapon loadouts ready to go. And then I don't have to commit to gluing like one set on there because the sticky tack is pretty good. I mean, it'll hold for days and days and days. I mean, yeah, if you knock it loose, okay, it'll fall off, but you just stick it back on. So I'm not worried about losing the pieces. Also, again, Hobby Lobby has these. They're like fishing boxes, but they have like two sides to them, so you can basically fit. Let's see, it's like I think it's like 24 of these figures on each side. It's like 48 to a package. So pretty economical, and it's got a handle, so you can carry it easily. And it's clear, so you can see exactly what you've got. And I pack little bits of furniture foam, or like those little makeup squares that they have, and they sell the little sponges. You can put those in to kind of make sure the figures don't just click clack clack, making noise bouncing up and down as you transport them. And then you put the weapons inside the little Ziploc bags, and you put those inside the uh, cubbies, little cubby holes to store them. I know everybody has their own favorite way of doing things, but that's how I'm going to do it. So I've got two of those carriers basically. And well, no, I think I added a third one because I was still going to try to bring some of those Space Crusade figures with me. But see, the Eldar, the bodies are painted blue, the heads are painted yellow, and they've got red eyes. And the heavy weapons are silver. But that's all I've done for those. And I've just cut them out and I've just put them in the bags, but I haven't like glued them together. I was planning to do the same thing. Now the Space Marines, I actually drilled holes in the arms, the new arms for the new weapons, because the original set that I had with Fire Team was push fit. So they have little pegs on the torso, and then you just, you know, fit the weapons in there. But when you buy the new weapons, they just assume you're going to glue them, so they have no holes. So I used, this mini drill, and it painstakingly drilled holes in all of the arms so that I could fit all of them on there. And I still use sticky tack because sometimes it, wasn't perfect, but you could pose them. That was kind of cool. These guys, they're a little more monopose, I guess you could say. So there isn't a whole lot of dynamism with the guns, but still you could sort of pose them. So he's got the gun up in the air instead of pointing straight ahead, that type of thing. But I like the flexibility it allows me. So anyway, you can just see me doing the repetitive painting of the green on the black. But just imagine me doing this for another hour. Whereas prior to these guys arriving and getting primed, I was just adding details to the figures I'd already painted. So I was making them look even better, even more of a contrast to these. But yes, I could make every orc look completely unique, but so far I've just stuck with the same kind of patterns, doing it assembly line style to get it done. And I think this is a lot easier than just sticking each piece to, like a stick or a piece of sticky tack and trying to paint it that way. Although a lot of people do just assemble them all, paint them how you want them to look. So each to their own. If you have a system that you prefer, I mean, a lot of people don't like to prime in black. They like to prime in white. But my thought here was with these, if I run out of time, I can just say they've got black clothes or black armor. And that's a common presentation anyway, of just having them have black outfits. It's like, why not? But if I get more time, there's going to be almost no black on the figure, except for the bikes. The bikes are going to have, well, I keep calling the bikes, the copters are going to have black. So that's pretty much that. I do have a few things to say about the news in the world of HeroQuest. So for you HeroQuest fans who are still listening at the 27-minute mark, I'm just going to pause real quick and get some pictures up. So here we are looking at the pictures now. So we've got just this image of the Crypt of Perpetual Darkness. Joe Mangin, I'm going to say it wrong every single time. It just never fails. Joe Manganiello. Joe Manganiello. Joe Manganiello's Crypt of Perpetual Darkness. So I'm just going through the pictures. These were all posted on Amazon.com US and also on Hasbro Pulse. There's a few different pictures out there. The UK Games or UK Gaming Expo happened this weekend. It's in progress right now. So Doug Hopkins, designer at Avalon Hill for Hasbro, Tess Hogan, um, narrative designer, I think is her official title. I remember talking to her for the first time 2 years ago at Gen Con about Rise of the Dread Moon, off the record, of course. But yeah, Doug, of course, and then Patrick O'Rourke, Intergalactic Patrick. I forget his exact title, but I always call him the marketing guy. But anyway, they were there and they did the unboxing, and there's been some negative reactions to this one because, on the one hand, we knew this was coming for the longest time. It was finally confirmed officially. Um, the last Mythic HasLab HeroQuest, former proprietary Joe Manganiello's Crypt of Perpetual Darkness, his 10 quests that the celebrity guy from the D&D world, Critical Role, True Blood, Magic Mike, How I Met Your Mother, that guy. Anyway, he wrote these 10 quests, and they were okay. I mean, he started out with some creative ideas, some interesting things. We played through it on the stream. And then towards the end, he just kind of started just adding more and more difficult things, like just kind of throw out anything. And then you fight the dragon at the end, and it's like kind of an anticlimax, like that's it. And then it ends on a cliffhanger, which was kind of cool. Which some people are saying, well, that leads right into Wizards of Morcar, which we know that's going to be the next one. They have not officially, publicly acknowledged that as coming out yet, and so we have no details on Wizards of Morcar. We're all hoping that it's going to get the same kind of attention that Against the Ogre Horde did, but I guess we'll have to wait until Gen Con to see. Because if it's coming out this year, I mean, it's going to be, I mean, it's done already, I'm sure. It's too late to make any last minute changes, and they will at some point need to recognize it and let us know. But anyway, we had previously seen Teo Sabadia's formerly exclusive Quest booklet released as its own pack, the Spirit Queen's Torment, with a holographic shiny cover, and Stephen Baker's Prophecy of Telor, same thing. And in both of those packs, they sort of set up precedent. I mean, they both came out at the same time. These two packs, they were the smaller box, $34.99. You had the shiny holographic cover, foil cover, and then you had inside, you had the stretch goal monsters from the crowdfunding campaign, but they were in translucent plastic. So you Spirit Queen, you had green and green dice to match, translucent green dice, which unfortunately there was a bad batch of resin at the factory, I guess. So several people have complained of their dice cracking, but thankfully Hasbro has replaced them. If you complain, I mean, civilly, to Hasbro Consumer Care, they'll send you a replacement set, which is great, which is what they should do. Yeah, cracking dice, that's not a good thing. But anyway, you had these two packs. So they gave you, a quest book in a box. There's not much to that because originally the idea was you pledge for the HasLab campaign, the Return of Hero Quest, and you got, the classic game system, in the remake format, and then you got Keller's Keep, Return of the Witch Lord from the old days. But then you got some bonus um, quests that have been written by guest authors, and one of them happened to be Stephen Baker. Of course, worked on the original Hero Quest from '89 and '90 in the UK, and so they brought him back to write some quests for Prophecy of Telor and other things later. But anyway, you had these packages, and so besides just the quest book, okay, well, what would you pay for that? Well, they threw in the monsters, so now you've got the monster sculpts. I mean, originally they were green or white or gray, and those figures weren't strictly necessary, but it was still like added value because now you could say, hey, those figures that were formerly exclusive are no longer exclusive. But the one thing they were waiting for was the dragon, and we had all these rumors talking about the proprietary dragon, and that's up to Joe, and that's behind a Joe-shaped door, and Joe Manganiello is going to have to decide. Well, now it's come out. But the controversy and the complaint people are having is there's not enough in this box to justify $34.99. Now, I know we've covered it on the Rantcast before, the whole tariff situation, the T word, people freaking out about that and saying, man, all these game companies have put all their eggs in one basket. They're super reliant on the supply chains from China. So the stuff is going to be so expensive. And so they haven't said anything publicly about this, but my suspicion is that may have something to do with it. That there's only one plastic miniature in this box. Just like First Light had only, well, that was before the tariffs, but the amount of plastic miniatures in the box is very little. So you think about the hero collections that they sold for like $16. Two characters, two character miniatures in there, and some cards, and that's it. And this box, you open it up, and there's a dragon. It's the same dragon, it's just a slightly different color. It's instead of just being plain gray, it's metallic gray. They said black metallic, but to me that doesn't look like black metallic. It just looks like kind of shiny silver. I mean, it's not metal, it's just metallic. So I don't know. Anyway, but you're buying one figure. It's a big figure. It's tall. It's got big wings. But I mean, it's the exact same miniature as in the HasLab Mythic campaign. So this is a good thing because scalpers had been selling it for a huge markup this whole time. It was really hard to find. There was even of course, we covered the controversy where Minis 3D was selling a resin replica of it, which has been taken down. So we've unbanned them, so to speak, from our Discord because we didn't want to get in trouble with Hasbro. Even though we don't work for them, we're trying to protect the community. But anyway, you don't have to rely on that anymore. You can just buy it. But the problem is the other stuff. It looks like they had the opportunity, in my view, to include the rest of the exclusive figures in the box, but they didn't. So the female barbarian, female wizard, female dwarf, the male elf, the prisoner Sir Ragnar, the mentor wizard, the witch lord. None of those figures are there. And I was like, darn it. And they didn't include any of the other monsters either. I mean, I guess if you already had Spirit Queen and Prophecy, you'd already have those figures. You wouldn't need to buy yet another copy. But see, they're always trying to find ways to let people know who already bought the collector version for the HasLab campaign that it's fine. You can buy it again if you want because there's new things. And also people who never had it in the first place that got FOMO and missed out. Well, now you have a chance to buy it. So it's like they're trying to make both groups of customers happy. So it's the dragon's a slightly different color, and if you paint it, who cares? But what else do you get? It feels like they just filled the box with swag, with extra stuff that wasn't really necessary, but there it is anyway. So as you can see from the pictures, I haven't really been addressing them directly, but there's a new character sheet pad. It's the same exact information as all the other character sheets we've had, because you had the Frozen Horror one, the First Light one, and the Game System one, except these say 10 quests instead of 14. I think that was the only change. The original said 14 because there's 14 in the box, but it's black and white, and it's done in a radically different style. Doug Hopkins called it heavy metal, so I guess he's evoking sort of those some of those 90s sensibilities. Maybe fans of Joe know what this is all about, but I mean, I think it looks cool. And actually, I think most of the art that you're seeing is done by Max Dunbar, who was the principal artist who did the artwork for the remake of Hero Quest. Not everything, but a lot of stuff. So he's been working on it from the beginning. So in that way, it's authentic, but the style is radically different. I mean, look at that font. It's this really wild font, and it's a little hard to read, I'm going to say, on these cards. But here's what they gave us. So new pad of character sheets, just in a different style. And they're black and white, so I guess if you photocopy them, it's easy because you're not having to worry about, the colors not transferring over, or you erase it and the little gray area gets rubbed out and looks weird when you erase the pencil that you wrote on there. It's just black and white, simple, good, fine. And you've got the cards. So the Crypt of Perpetual Darkness only had 3 additional items. One of them didn't have a card, the Oil of Acid Immunity that you just find. There was no card. It just describes it in the booklet, and you just write it on your character sheet. Well, they made a card for it. And so that protects you from acid attacks. Then they also gave you the Dragon Spear, which gives you a bonus against a dragon, which you only fight once at the end. Spoilers. Then the Crown of Shadows, which is the artifact you're trying to find the whole time, which sort of leads into the epilogue, which I won't spoil here. But if you want to read about it, you can. Now, there is a spoiler at the end about the first quest, but basically what they showed us is there's no change. Like the first quest is identical to what it was before. So I think that's probably a sign, and that's what we'll play at Gen Con coming up, is Quest 1, I'm sure. And they'll have a special, never before seen First Light quest, which could be interesting. And thanks to Rob Champ for getting me a ticket because I missed before they sold out. But yeah, so we're expecting that they're going to correct the errata, the errors from the booklet. There weren't as many actually in this shorter quest book than there were in Prophecy of Telor and Spirit Queen's Torment. There was a lot of like typos and mistakes in those. So anything they correct is just going to make Zargon's job easier when you're running these quests. So that's a good thing. There is some extra artwork in the book that wasn't there before. Again, by Max Dunbar, I believe. So that's cool. But I mean, only Zargon gets to see it. Nobody else gets to see it. So Sorry about that. I still got this cough. Um, yeah, so there's only so many choices, but what we see here is we've got the equipment cards and we've got alchemy cards. Now, Rise of the Dread Moon gave us a whole alchemy system. You've got treasure cards that go in the treasure deck that you find these reagents, and then you're supposed to use those in the quest to craft these other potions. And there is the unidentified ingredient, which then gives you a random draw. But I don't think it really ruins anything to see that the top card that you're about to draw is holographic and shiny, and so therefore you can guess what it's going to be. It's only so many possibilities. You can always shuffle the deck every time. But that's the only random draw is the alchemy card, because now, I mean, starting with Jungles of Delthrak, they just started using the alchemy like card back to go with any potion that you find. It's not necessarily meant to be you use it with Rise of the Dread Moon, but you can if you want to. It'd be really easy. Because before that, all the potions they were just in the equipment deck. So it looks like they actually gave you all of the items that are mentioned in the back of the original quest book for Crypt of Perpetual Darkness, even if they weren't anything particularly special. So you've got a battle axe and a crossbow in there. It's like, why do you need another one of those cards? Well, you've got one. And it's in this radically different art style. Now, I was saying I don't really care for these on the table, but as posters, they look pretty awesome. So I wouldn't mind getting a poster. Now, here's the other thing. Look at that miniature. You see the rim, the bottom, the base that it's on? That reminds me of Ribby's Remarkable Rims. That is a rubber, like a boot that attaches to the bottom, the circular integrated base of the figure, and it's just gray. Well, previously, Avalon Hill had made these little boots available inside the Betrayal at House on the Hill third edition. So they gave you let's say the four characters, and they all have just gray plastic figures. Well, some people are going to sit down and paint those in full color. Other people won't. But to easily differentiate at a glance which player is which, they give you each a different colored boot that you attach to the bottom of the figure. So, oh, you're blue or you're red or whatever. So the Betrayal expansions have had that. Oh, and there's the crew. So there's Tess Hogan on the left, Doug Hopkins in the middle, and Patrick O'Rourke on the right. I'm not sure who that other gentleman is. Is that a staffer or a fan? Might have been just the reporter that was taking the picture. But look at those posters behind them. Like, those look cool. Those look fun. I wouldn't mind having those. If they gave some of those away at the convention, I'd go for it. But as far as the cards go, I mean, I know what the Battle Axe is. So if you put the Battle Axe card down, I might not be able to read it very well, but I know what it is. I know how it works. So the cards that they give you are all the same Alchemist Shop potions that were in Spirit Queen's Torment and Keller's Keep, Return of the Witch Lord. I mean, it's those four potions, and then there's Holy Water, which we haven't seen in a while. They still treat it as an equipment card that you buy. Nothing's changed there. And you've got the battle axe and the crossbow, which again, it's like, why do you need more of those? Well, you've got them. Just an opportunity to see some more cool artwork, I guess. But yeah, people were complaining that the style was so different than the rest of HeroQuest, and I agree. But they give you two copies of the Crown of Shadows. You've got the new style and then the old style, the remake style. So the three main items you're going to use have just matching styles. And there's the quest one. So if you don't want spoilers, don't look at it. But it's just quest one. The tavern tile is still there. Flip it over. It's the temple tile. You've got the acid pool trap tiles. You got the vine trap tiles, which are slightly different than the ones in Jungles of Delthrak, but these came first. The mechanics are the same. And then you've got the Dread Skull tiles. And all these things are used very sparingly. Now, one thing we did notice is in the original version in Quest 3, minor spoilers, they reuse some tiles from Keller's Keep. Because again, people who got the Mythic box had access to all the assets from Keller's Keep, Return of the Witch Lord. Well, in that quest, they used the cliff side tile. It's this corridor tile. And they also used some of the staircases, not the spiral staircase, but the long staircase. but it's just like, oh, you're simulating you're going up and down a staircase. But it doesn't change. It doesn't have any inherent game mechanics that are missing if you take those away. They're just strictly for decoration. So I would say if you own Keller's Keep, you can use that set to supplement this to have the full experience as it was originally written, originally intended. But otherwise, yeah, we're not sure what other changes they're going to make. Now, there was another concern is there's a few quests where you could call it an error if you want to, where more monsters are called for than actually would be found in the box. And that's this issue that it's going to go back to the painting in a second, but I'm just still talking here about Crypt of Perpetual Darkness. The idea behind all these expansions is they're not going to assume that you own every expansion. So you're not going to buy one box and it's going to say, yeah, this is incomplete. Actually, you need this other box to make it, play it as intended. So all you need is the game system and whatever expansion you bought, and then you've got everything you need. Well, sometimes they make mistakes. They forget that and think, you have, 8 skeletons or something, or, 4 zombies. Like you don't have enough. Now, the rule in HeroQuest is always, what do I do if I run out of monsters? Well, you substitute another monster of the same color. So you ran out of skeletons, use a zombie, use a mummy, whatever. In later expansions where all the figures are kind of the same color, like Frozen Horror, they're all like a pastel blue. They just say substitute a monster of similar strength, because Zargon could do that, of course. But still, it's nice to have as many monsters as they really thought you should have. So if 3 abominations or 4 abominations are supposed to appear at the same time, well, there's no way you can actually do that unless you happen to have some extras. Well, hardcore players like us who collect everything, quote unquote, we have enough. But the average player is going to be like, wait a minute. So I was certain that they would include at least a few extra monsters in the box, just so that could have, in those instances, you'd have enough monsters. I know, minor point, easily fixed. They could have gone through those quests and just made the corrections. So instead of, 4 zombies, it'd be like 2 zombies, 2 skeletons. Done, fixed. But they might not have. They might have just left it as is. But it'll be interesting to see, once it actually comes out or we actually get to see it at Gen Con. Sorry, Doug. It'll be a case of, okay, I wonder what things are different. I wonder what changes are there. We can kind of get a look. We're hoping that they fix errors, issues, maybe improve it, tighten it up, improve it a little bit more. Some of us were wondering if Joe wrote new quests. We don't think so. It's just the 10 that we had before. We haven't seen anything to say that like the dragon stats are going to be different or anything like that. So we're nearing the end of our stream here, or not really a stream, but video. But the only other thing is you've got these black combat dice, which I think look awesome. I mean, for the longest time, we've had people selling quote unquote power dice or German colored dice, where let's say the combat dice, instead of being white with black symbols, they're black with white symbols. High contrast, it looks awesome. These don't have any adjustments to the distribution, so there's still 3 skulls, 2 white shields, 1 black shield. But anyway, they've got 6 alternate combat dice that you can use that are black. And so really at this point, there's enough, I think. Let's see. Yeah, yeah, there's enough. So you've got white in the game system, blue in Frozen Horror, you've got green in Spirit Queen, orange in Prophecy of Telor, and now black in Crypt of Perpetual Darkness. So everybody can have their own combat dice. Zargon and the 4 heroes can each have their own set of dice, theoretically. Buying only official packs. I mean, if you buy the fan roll dice, the limited edition dice, you could have even more. And then, yeah, First Light has, the slightly different colored, ivory looking dice. For movement dice, you're not going to have as many options. So unless you got them from Target, I mean, you've got these, the black ones. You've got blue and Frozen Horror. You might have white in First Light, and then you've got Game System red. But that'd be like for the 4 heroes. Zargon hardly ever needs the movement dice. I mean, occasionally he'll need it for like spell resistance for monsters, but that's basically it. So you've got the gray boot for the dragon. and the holographic stuff. So it'll be interesting to see if it's a success or not.